Game of Thrones: Lessons in Power, Strategy, and Human Nature. Introduction: A story bigger than fantasy. Game of Thrones is not just a fantasy show. It is a story about power, ambition, love, and betrayal. The same forces that move real people and real nations. Behind the dragons and castles, we find something very human: the endless struggle for control, respect, and survival. When people watched Game of Thrones, they saw not only knights and queens, but also the mirror of their own world. A world where the strong rise and the weak fall, where truth is often less important than influence, and where doing the right thing can sometimes cost everything. The series became famous for its shocking moments, but what really made it powerful was its truth about human nature. It showed us that good and evil are not simple things. People are complex. They have light and darkness inside. They can love and hate at the same time. And that is why Game of Thrones still matters today. Even though the show ended years ago, its lessons about politics, strategy, and relationships remain alive in governments, in companies, and even in our personal lives. So let's go beyond the fantasy and explore what Game of Thrones can still teach us about power, strategy, and human nature. The Game of Power. At the center of the series is one great question: who deserves to rule? Everyone wants the Iron Throne: kings, queens, warriors, and even advisors. But the series quickly shows us that power is not about titles or crowns. It's about perception. As Varys, the master of whispers, says, power resides where men believe it resides. That simple idea carries deep wisdom. Power is not something you can hold in your hands. It exists only when people believe in it. In modern life, the same is true. A president, a CEO, or a teacher only has power when others trust or fear them. The moment people stop believing, the power disappears. Think about Robert Baratheon, the king at the start of the series. He had the crown, but not control. He was distracted, lazy, and lost his purpose. Compare him to Tywin Lannister, who never sat on the throne, but ruled through strength and presence. His authority came from respect, not a title. Lesson 1. Power comes from confidence, clarity, and the ability to inspire or command others, not from symbols. Now, look at Daenerys Targaryen. She begins as a lost girl with no army and no land, but she believes in her destiny. Step by step, she gains trust and followers because belief is contagious. However, as her power grows, her compassion starts to fade. She begins to confuse justice with control, freedom with domination. And that shows another truth. Power can change people, even when their intentions are good. In today's world, we can see the same thing in politics, in companies, even in personal relationships. When people get power, they often start to believe they are always right. They stop listening. And when that happens, their fall is only a matter of time. Strategy and survival. If power is about influence, strategy is about survival. In Game of Thrones, even the most powerful characters die when they stop thinking 2 steps ahead. Every move in Westeros is like a chess game. Each word, alliance, or betrayal can change the future. And no one understood that better than Tyrion Lannister. Tyrion was born small in body, but great in mind. He couldn't win with a sword, so he fought with words and intelligence. He used humor to hide his pain and knowledge to stay alive. His story reminds us of a timeless truth. When you can't be the strongest, be the smartest. In real life, the same rule applies. When we don't have power, money, or position, we can still win through creativity, preparation, and timing. Strategy is not about controlling others. It's about knowing yourself and seeing clearly. Another great strategist in the series is Littlefinger, Petter Baelish. He came from nothing, but rose to one of the most powerful positions in the kingdom, all through manipulation and information. He once said, "Chaos is a ladder." It means that when everything looks uncertain, the smart ones see opportunity. This is exactly what happens in business and politics too. Moments of crisis are where real leaders appear. But Littlefinger's end also teaches another truth. When your ambition has no limits, it eventually destroys you. He played with everyone, but in the end, everyone played against him. Lesson 2. Strategy must serve a purpose, not just ambition. Without ethics or direction, intelligence turns into poison. We also see the power of strategy in Jon Snow. Unlike Littlefinger, Jon was honest, sometimes too honest, but he learned from failure. He learned that leading means more than fighting. It means making hard decisions, even when no one understands you. Jon's strength was moral, not political. And that's why people followed him. Not because he wanted power, but because he represented something higher. His story shows that in a world full of lies, truth itself becomes a strategy. Being consistent and fair can be more powerful than tricks and manipulation, especially in the long run. The human side of Thrones. Beyond politics and war, Game of Thrones is also a deep reflection on relationships and emotions. Behind every fight for power, there's love, fear, pride, or revenge. Let's look at the Lannisters, one of the most complex families in fiction. Cersei loves her children fiercely, but that love becomes an obsession. She believes she's protecting them, but in truth, she's protecting her own ego. Her fear of losing control turns her into a prisoner of her own ambition. Jaime Lannister, her brother and lover, is also trapped between love and honor. At first, he seems arrogant and cruel, but over time we see a man searching for redemption. His journey teaches us that people can change, but only when they face their own truth. Lesson 3, power without emotional balance always leads to destruction. We can also learn from Sansa Stark. She starts as an innocent girl who dreams of being a queen. But through pain, betrayal, and loss, she becomes strong, wise, and strategic. She learns how to read people, how to wait, and how to use silence as a weapon. By the end of the story, she becomes a real leader, calm, patient, and fair. Sansa teaches us that strength is not about fighting, but about endurance and wisdom. Then there's Arya Stark, the symbol of freedom and individuality. She refuses to be what society expects. Her courage to be different and her search for identity reflect something very modern. the fight to be yourself in a world that wants to define you. Even the story of Brienne of Tarth carries a strong message. She represents loyalty and honor in a world that often laughs at such values. Her character reminds us that kindness and integrity are not weaknesses. They are strengths that survive when everything else falls apart. Modern reflections, Game of Thrones and today's world. Now, let's bring these lessons to our own time. Why does Game of Thrones still matter years after it ended? Because its world, even with dragons, is not so different from ours. In politics, we still see leaders fighting for power, sometimes forgetting the people they promised to serve. In companies, we see ambition, alliances, and betrayal. And in personal life, we often face the same battles between heart and reason, pride and forgiveness. The series is a reminder that human nature doesn't change, only the stage changes. The castles became skyscrapers, the swords became smartphones, but the struggles are the same. Lesson 4, to understand today's world, study human behavior, not just technology or laws. In many ways, Game of Thrones is a warning. It shows how pride can destroy nations, how revenge can blind the wise, and how the desire to control others often leads to loneliness. But it also gives hope. It shows that courage, honesty, and empathy can still make a difference, even in the darkest times. Characters like Jon Snow, Brienne, and Tyrion remind us that moral strength is not weakness. It's what keeps humanity alive in a society full of noise, manipulation, and competition. These lessons are more important than ever. The philosophy of Thrones. Philosophically, Game of Thrones teaches us 3 main truths. Power is fragile. It depends on perception and belief. Once trust is gone, the strongest throne can fall in a day. Strategy is survival. Intelligence, patience, and timing are often stronger than violence. The mind is the real weapon. Human nature is constant. The same passions that moved kings and queens still move us today. Love, fear, hope, and ambition. These ideas connect directly to great philosophers like Machiavelli, Aristotle, and even modern thinkers. Machiavelli would admire Tywin and Littlefinger. Aristotle would praise Jon Snow's virtue and moral balance. And the Stoics would find peace in characters like Brienne and Davos, who stay loyal to what is right, no matter the storm. The final lesson, knowing yourself. At the end of the day, the biggest battle in Game of Thrones is not between families or armies. It's the battle inside each person, between who they are and who they pretend to be. Tyrion says at one point, "Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like an armor, and it can never be used to hurt you." That is one of the wisest lines in the whole series. It means that true strength begins with self-knowledge. When you accept yourself, your flaws, fears, and past, no one can use them against you. In a world obsessed with image and appearance, that's a lesson worth remembering. Conclusion: Beyond the Throne. Game of Thrones ends with fire and ashes, but also with understanding. Those who tried to control everything lost it all. Those who stayed true to themselves survived, and some even found peace. The show may have been about dragons and magic, but its heart was always about people and the choices they make. Every time we choose integrity over lies, courage over fear, or wisdom over impulse, we play our own Game of Thrones. And maybe, just maybe, the real throne we should seek is not made of iron, but of self-mastery, knowledge, and virtue.